Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you so much for joining today's Plum session on parenting and productivity and the perfect balance. Before we dive into the session, a little bit about me. My name is Menaka Raman. I am a communications consultant. I'm a children's book author and a podcast producer. I wear many, many hats, and I try and do sometimes my family thinks a little too much, but yeah, I'm interested in many many things, predominantly storytelling, and I also have two boys who are now 15 and 12. So
Perfect.
it's it's been a long journey of trying to find this balance and achieve this balance between the roles we play as parents and also our work and our working lives. So I think, you know, all of you here have children and you're all working either remotely or back in the office. You might be consultants, you might be freelancers, you might be in full time roles, but you all have these demanding work lives and you also have a very demanding job of parenting. And I really love this little poster I found online, which I think it sums it pretty well. Parenting is a terrible job when you think about it. Boss, and sometimes you have two demanding, or if you're very brave, three demanding bosses who can all be a bit moody. And really, the benefits, like they say, don't kick in until years later. Of course, there are always perks. You might have a very hot coworker in your partner or spouse, and I suppose that helps take the edge off things. But parenting does feel like a job, and we've kind of gone from parenting being a noun to being a verb today, right? We all parent our children. It's something we actively do for many of our waking hours, and those hours, are they enough? Does it feel like we have enough with enough time with our children? And I think sometimes, if you're a late millennial like myself, we all have this very rosy picture of our own childhoods, right? We like to think that, oh, when I was a child, my parents had so much time to spend with me and they did so much with me, and I'm just not able to give that much time to my children. But if you actually look at some of the data and research around that, many mothers and fathers actually feel like they spend more time with their children than their parents did. And this is while they hold down various they hold down work outside the home. They do various volunteering initiatives. They play active roles in their communities. So many parents feel like they're actually spending more time with their children. And, there is a percentage that, and they feel that that's still not enough, right? Even though we're spending more time, more money, more resources, more attention on our children, it maybe doesn't feel like enough. And feel free to use the chat box to share how you feel about this. Do you think you're spending more time with your children than your parents did with you? Does it feel like enough? Does it feel like it's too little? And feel free to share any thoughts using the chat box about this. Yeah, and we'll have a look at it. And Sunita will be monitoring your chat conversations throughout this session. So yeah, feel free to use that chat box and tell me how you feel. So this whole thing of time, I think all of us know this delightful little pink rabbit with the drum. It's the Energizer Bunny who never runs out of power or energy and is always going on and on and on. And to me, the Energizer Bunny is this great example of, or is a great kind of representation of of all of us with our modern lives today, right? And let's look at some of the things that characterize what modern life is like today. And this applies to both work and it applies to both parenting. It's really interesting if you look at it. How many of you here, and again, while we're going through some of these things, feel free to use the chat box, or you can use, the emoticons to use a thumbs up, and share how many of you feel some of these things today. How many of you feel like you're always on? There's this always on mentality, not just amongst you, your partner, but in your social circles at work. You always have to be on at work. You always have to be on with your children, ready to, answer any of their questions, tend to their needs and requests. And you're always very, very, very busy. And if you ask me, some of us, and I'm guilty of this too, we wear our busyness like a badge of honor, right? Like, when was the last time you went and met someone at a party, at a social gathering, and you said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And it's a really harmless kind of question we all have as a conversation starter. And the other person launches into this this litany of things that they've been doing. Oh, I've been traveling, I've been putting late nights in the office, and I'm training for a ultra marathon. Plus, I'm learning how to play the guitar, and it just goes on and on and on. But we're all busy, and we wear that busyness very proudly. We're quite proud of our busyness, and I'm guilty of this too. Just last week, I was on a call with a friend, and I did the same thing. It was like, hey, how are you doing? And I just launched into this long list of things that I was doing. And I think I did that because I wanted, a little pat on the back for all the hard work and all the things I was doing. And I also wanted to vent and whine a little bit. But all of us are always on. We're always busy. We're always doing something. If we are sitting down and resting or taking a moment for ourselves, we might even feel a little bit guilty about that. So this always on mentality with our children, with our bosses, with our managers, with our families. The next thing that characterizes modern life is increasing and indefinite demands. There is so much demanded from us at work, quarter on quarter targets, having these pipeline calls with the entire team and being able to contribute to them and always coming up with newer and better ideas all the time. And you feel like if you don't keep up, you're going to be left behind, right? And some of us feel that way with our children as well, even with parenting. There's this constant kind of feeling of, oh my gosh, my kids have to be doing the latest thing. They have to play a sport. They have to have some kind of an extracurricular cultural activity, an instrument, singing. They have to do well academically. They have to be healthy. They have to be getting enough sleep. They have to be, aware of all the things that are happening around today. And so there are all these demands that we have of our children, that we think society has of our children. And there are, of course, also the demands our children have of us, right? There are so many things that our children want to do. There are places they want to go, holidays they want to take, movies they want to see, our attention that they want. So we have so much demand on our time. And you feel like if you're not going to do all of these things, you're going to be left behind and your children are going to be left behind. And of course, there's this third thing, and I think nothing more than COVID-19 and the pandemic and lockdowns, contributed to this, but the fact of collapsing boundaries. And we all know during the lockdown, working from home, parenting from home, teaching from home, online school, caring for our elders, trying to get into calls and making presentations in between, cooking, cleaning, running the home, all of these things, right? The boundaries between our working lives and our personal lives just disappeared. And there were umpteen number of distractions, interruptions throughout the day, small and large calamities and fires that you had to put out, both at work and on the home front. And I think that's the time that we just realized, oh my gosh, there is no separation between work and life. And for many of us, some of these, this kind of collapsed boundaries, we haven't been able to put those boundary walls back up. We've just kind of carried on as we were, getting on calls late at night, early morning start to work, and we're just kind of carrying on as we were. And so we've all become this Energizer bunny. But, guess what? Even the Energizer bunny runs out of juice. Even the Energizer bunny, as much as we'd like to believe that those batteries are going to last forever and we're going to be able to go on and on and on forever, we aren't, right? And parental burnout is a very real thing. Feel free to use your emoji to give me a thumbs up or a sad face. I wouldn't say it's a smiley, but if you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted from the stress of parenting, from the demands of parenting, and how they are colliding with your work. I know that I go through these intense bouts of burnout, and it's almost like there's a complete physical and mental shutdown that I go through when I have just taken on too much. So all of us are feeling the pressures, some of us more so than others. And like I said before, the demands on us to spend more time, more attention, more money into raising our children today, it all takes a toll. So, even though this session is called How to Achieve the Perfect Balance Between Parenting and Work, I really hope all of you know that there is no such thing as a perfect balance when it comes to this. We can all strive for balance. We can all keep working towards trying to achieve it. And, some of us might even have those wonderful one-off days or 2 days in a week where everything goes off really smoothly, really well. Things in office, things at work go really well. We have time with our children. We're able to cater to their needs. We can spend time with our kids. We're able to help them with their homework or any kind of personal issues they're going through. We even have time for ourselves to go to the gym, to go for a walk, any of that, or to just unwind and read a book. And there are these really wonderful days where you might even sit and think to yourself, oh, if only every day was like this. But I think we all know here that every day can't always be balanced and can't always be perfect. But there are some things that we can definitely do as employees, as parents, as partners in a marriage, raising a family. There are some things that we can definitely all do to be able to strive for this balance. And I'm going to share some of them with you here. And the first one is to set realistic goals. So we all have goals, right? We have goals at work, we have goals for ourselves, and we have the goals that our workplace and our managers and our super bosses and CEOs want you, your team, the organization to reach. So we all have these goals. We also have goals for our families. We have goals for our children. What kind of children we're hoping to raise, how we want to raise them, what we hope they'll grow up to do. And we have goals for our families as well, right? The kind of vacations we want to take, what we want to do in our leisure time, all of those things. But I think it's really important. And, some people have these goals written down. For some, it's kind of slightly more kind of set of things in their head, an abstract, set of things in their head that they think about time to time. But I think it's so important to pause every now and then and to really think, okay, how realistic are my goals? And what do I mean by realistic goals, right? First of all, and I just think this is something that parents sometimes find a little hard, especially in modern day parenting today. Can you de-link your goals from your ego? And what do I mean by that, right? Take, for example, you want your child to learn an instrument, or you want your child to play a sport. Now, a realistic goal might be, hey, I'd like my child to learn this instrument or sport because, it's good for their creativity. Playing a sport teaches you really important life skills and skills that you can take throughout life. It keeps them physically fit. That's a perfectly, maybe they can go and play football twice a week, or I'll sign my daughter up for cricket coaching somewhere, and that's absolutely fine. When that goal becomes something that you tie to your own value as a parent, that becomes dangerous. When you set goals for your family and for your children and for yourself so that you feel good about it, you can maybe boast and brag about it a little bit at the next kind of event or gathering that you're at, where your child not being able to maybe reach some of those goals. It's okay to say, I want my child to be a football player, but my child has to be the youngest person selected for the national football team. Yeah. Or I want my child to go and play for, I don't know, some amazing club in Europe somewhere. And those are fine goals to have, but why is it important for you? Is it important to your child? Does your child want to do those things, or do you want those things for your child? So it's important to understand where our goals are coming from and de-link them from your ego. Another thing about goals is your goal a must have or is it a good to have? Right? And sometimes those good to have goals, they're nice. They're really nice if they're there. Of course, it's wonderful. So, for example, must have is that your family or your children, they should have 3 meals a day. They should eat nutritious, healthy food. It's a good must have, right? Of course, we all want our children to grow up to be strong and healthy. Good to have is if you cook as a parent, you're cooking that meal for them from scratch. And that's nice. It's always very, very nice to have your mother or your father come and make your favorite meal for you. But you're on a time crunch, you're working long hours, busy hours. So maybe that good to have can be that you bring someone, you have a cook, you hire someone to come into your house and make the meals for you. And that doesn't, you don't have to put that pressure and take it on upon yourself. Because I think sometimes our goals are all about this idea of us becoming a perfect kind of parent, right? We want to be this vision, this epitome of perfection. And we think that if we are the perfect parent, we're going to have perfect children who are successful in some very kind of this vision that we have in our heads of what they're going to grow up to do and study and be and how much money they'll make. So we're all about perfection. But if you're being a perfect parent, you have to ask yourself, are you being a good parent to the child that you have and the stage of life they're at right now? Because sometimes I think children are very happy and are very, very satisfied if we're good, or can I even say good enough parents? Just be good enough. We don't have to be perfect, amazing, stupendous, outstanding all of the time. Sometimes just being good enough is absolutely fine. And that's actually what our children need more than being perfect, more than having all these ideal goals and visions in our head and kind of going a little crazy trying to reach them. And when we talk about goals and visions, it's wonderful to have this idea in our head of the future and what our children might be like, right? But are you enjoying the parenting journey? Yes, we all have this goal that the goal of parenting is to raise these successful, happy, healthy, good society, good citizens of of the future world. We have all these ideas in our head, and those are great goals. But are you enjoying the journey of getting there? If in the realization of these goals, you are stressed out, you are short tempered, you are tired, you snap at everyone around you, you are, you know, unable to be actually present for your child for even 5 minutes a day, is it worth it? And the same thing applies to work, right? All these goals and ambitions and ideals that we have ourselves at work, what do they serve, of course, if we're not enjoying that process, if it's keeping us from doing the other things that we also want to do with our lives, with our families, with our children, with our partners, with our friends. So I think it's a lovely saying of worthwhile goals must have a pleasurable journey. There's no point achieving everything you want to achieve if the journey getting there makes you and your family miserable. Learning to say no. And I think learning to say no to ourselves, but very important to learn to say no to your children. Because I think children today also, the way that we're raising them, the way that we are with them, they realize that there is a paucity of time that we have. They know that they're most of the time going to get a yes from parents because we feel some kind of a parental guilt. Because we don't want, we don't know how to say no to them. Some people have even told me, I'm scared to say no to my children. Yeah, we don't want the tantrums and the drama that follows from that. So we never say no to our kids. And what are the things that you can say no to? If your child wants to sign up for 10 after school activities, I want to learn this, I want to do that, I want to go for this birthday party, please also take me for this movie, can we go and eat out tonight, all of those things, right? Learn to say no. And I've really now started telling both my sons, they're much older, of course, but over the last few years, if there's a request, hey, I want to go to this, event, I want to go to this party, I want to go to my friend's house. And if I cannot find the time, if I cannot find the kind of gather the resources to take them and drop them and bring them back. And of course, I live in Bangalore, where the traffic is terrible, where the distances are huge. And sometimes it can take me 3 hours getting them to some place. I've said no. And I've explained why I'm saying no. And, they do understand. And even now, sometimes when they come to me, they'll say, hey, I'd like to do this, but if it's not possible, I understand. So over a period of time, learning to say no to your children, having conversations with your children as to why you're saying no. It's not always going to go smoothly. It's not always going to go fantastically. There are going to be meltdowns. There are going to be tantrums and tears, accusations of unfairness. But it's a great thing for them also to hear no in their lives as they grow up. And I think this last one is something that we all are familiar with now. We all used to have FOMO a few years ago, fear of missing out. But I think we all know now that there is much more pleasure to be had in the joy of missing out. So sometimes say no to things for your children, for yourself, say no to certain things that you can't take on at work or you can't take on at home, and sit back and enjoy that time. Now, we're talking so much about all these realistic goals that I'm asking you to set. Even if your goals are realistic, even if you manage to set these realistic goals, we all still need to take help. Now, here's a statistic that I found, and I think I saw during the pandemic, right? So we all know, of course, that even though India has a declining female labor workforce participation rate, there are less women in the workforce today than there were a decade ago. But women in this age group, this working age category, They spend 7.2 hours of unpaid domestic work, every day. That's how much time they're spending on unpaid domestic work compared to 2 hours spent by men. And there's a time poverty, right? And also, if you are working outside the house, if you're a woman who is working outside the house, you do a full day's shift at work, wherever that might be. That may be outside the house, maybe you're remote working from home, but at the end of that full day shift of paid work, you have a second shift at home. And that's a second shift that involves caregiving to elders, to children, to running the home, to household chores, cooking, cleaning, ordering groceries, whatever it might be, right? And that is a lot. That is a lot of time that women are spending on work, unpaid work at home, unpaid domestic labor. So, of course, we've all seen the award winning hashtag trending Share the Load campaign by Ariel. But what does it really mean outside of a 1 minute commercial? What does it really mean to share the load with your partner? And of course, I don't think we should all be waiting for a unisex washing machine to arrive so that we can share the load with each other, or gadgets which are, comprehensible to both genders or all genders. I think that it's much easier to share the load. And of course, the first is to play to each other's strengths. Each of us have certain things that we are good at that come naturally to us. We should lean into them. I'm going to give you a really quick example. In our home, I don't plan vacations at all. I do not plan holidays. I do not book holidays. I do not plan itineraries, tickets, nothing. I give my partner the holiday calendar for the year. I tell him when is a lean, easy time for me to take time off in these vacations. And I say, you go ahead and do the research. And he loves it because he's a natural planner. He has an eye for detail. He really, really enjoys making Excel sheets out of all of these things. And all I have to do is pack my bags, because my kids are old enough to pack their own bags now, and be ready when we are leaving for the airport or getting into the car to drive off somewhere. So that is his skill. He's also excellent at ordering all our groceries and provisions and everything. All of that he does. He takes over, he takes charge of. So, because those are some of his strengths, he's very good at planning into the future, seeing what we need, looking at what is, low levels in the house, and just being able to automatically manage and take care of all that. So we play to each other's strengths. If I had to book a holiday for my family, we would never go anywhere at all. We would be sitting at home year round, right? Learn the skills that you need to learn. And this goes for, of course, there's this washing machine ad here, which makes it sound like you need some special kind of a washing machine for both genders to be able to use. I really don't believe that. These are all very, very easy things to pick up and learn, whether it's operating machinery and around the house, whether it's understanding your insurance, your investments, whether it is filing your tax returns or whatever those things are. I think these are all skills that we need to learn. And when both partners, when you and your partner pick up these skills, when you learn how to do these things around the house, when you learn the financial aspects of running the house, all of these things, you are role modeling for your children what an equitable relationship looks like. You're showing them that it's not impossible for anyone to learn anything, right? So it's really important to learn the skills that you need to learn. Now, here's one thing that I have learned the hard way: speak up. Please don't expect people to mind read. Yeah. And I think maybe some of the women here on this, I'm going to really try hard not to kind of lean into this whole gender thing, but maybe some of the women in this session here who are attending know what I'm talking about. You will be doing something and you'll kind of be, looking obviously like you really need help, right? With whatever task it might be. Maybe you're on a call. Maybe you're also, tending to something with your children or with an elder person in your family, and your partner is also sitting there. And I think they've made so many commercials about this today as well. But you really would like your partner to just kind of look up and realize that you need help and step in and offer the help that's required. That happens sometimes, but if it doesn't, very clearly say, hi, I need you to do this for me now. Or hi, I need you to take care of this for me tomorrow. Please speak up. Please don't expect people to just mind read what it is you need and spring into action. We must verbalize our needs and wants clearly to the person we want to do them. Here's another thing also that many of us are guilty of. We if things don't happen, maybe, I don't know how many of you have seen this. You might have a conversation with your partner saying, hey, these are the things that I really need you to help with around the house, right? And after that conversation, maybe for a week, things go really well. Your partner is helping with, scheduled carpools. Maybe your partner is taking your kids to, various classes and activities and coming back. They're helping, with the laundry, whatever it might be. But after a week, things start to slide back to the way they were before. And what do many of us do when that happens? We seethe in silence. We'll just sit there and we'll be like, just kind of boiling and raging inside, right? And I do this myself during the pandemic. In the first few weeks of the pandemic, first few maybe month of the pandemic, I'm a lone woman living in a house with 3 men, so I'm outnumbered here, right? I kind of had this conversation and said, look, I have a lot of work to do, and you're all at home. You all need to pitch in and do these things, at dinner time, at lunchtime, etc. And the first week, first couple of weeks, it was great. Everyone did what they were meant to do. They were all helping out. It was really taking the load off me, and I was feeling so good. And then one day, I don't know what happened, but after dinner, the 3 men in the house just finished dinner and like washed their hands and went off to go and watch TV. And it happened that day, and then it happened the next day. And then the third day, I kind of threw some vessels around a little loudly into the kitchen sink, hoping someone would notice that I was fuming inside. No one did. And then, on the fourth day, I said, I don't know what's happened, but you all seem to think that I don't need help anymore. And I definitely do. So you have to, when things start to slide, you have to speak up. Weaponizing incompetence, this is too hard for me to learn. I don't know how to do this. Making mistakes on purpose so that you don't have to do that job anymore. These are things we are all guilty of, and we must all stop. And we must call it out when it happens, right? And not just your partner. Please teach your children. Please teach, if you live with parents, if you live with grandparents, please teach them also how they can pitch into some of the things, of course, keeping in mind their age and their health, all of those things. But let's teach our children how to take part in household chores, cooking, cleaning. All of those things are basic self-care that all our children, irrespective of their gender, must learn how to do so they can take care of themselves, right? So honestly, it's wonderful. My boys know how to do some very basic cooking now, and on a weekend, they make me an omelet, and it feels very nice. It feels wonderful to be taken care of like that. They do their own laundry. They are able to put things away when they come in from big basket delivery. So please teach your children as well. And when you and your partner role model sharing the load and you teach your children how to do these things as well, it's a win-win situation for everyone all around. Now, delegation is something that all of us do at work, right? All of us are not doing everything that our team is supposed to be doing. You might have a team of people working under you and reporting into you. Are you doing all their jobs, or are you delegating work to them? And are you letting them go ahead and take that responsibility on? What I want to know is, why are we all so bad at implementing that at home? Why are we all terrible at delegating when it comes to our home lives and being able to kind of lean on each other and say, hey, this is your thing to do, and you need to take it on from now on. We don't seem to, and sometimes I think there are some wonderful lessons from work that we can kind of take into our parenting lives and to our home lives, and vice versa as well. And we'd be great if we started doing this. Delegate. And this is great questions to ask yourselves from time to time. What could you stop doing? What should you stop doing, and what will you stop doing, right? And I think this leads into this idea also of dropping the ball. And I think it's something that we all should just do every now and then as a matter of practice, just to get into the habit of it. So what do I mean by dropping the ball, right? We all have these various balls that we're juggling in the air all the time: work related, family related, child related, parental care related, health related, self-care related, all of these things that we're trying to do today, right? And we're desperately trying to keep all these balls up in the air because we're scared of what's going to happen if we don't catch them, if we're not constantly juggling all of these things all the time. Now, the author Nora Roberts, in a panel discussion, she said something fantastic. She said, all of these balls, some of them are made of glass and some of them are made of plastic. What happens when you drop a plastic ball? It bounces back right up, correct? And it's fine. Nothing terrible happens. If you drop a glass ball, it's going to shatter. Now, Sometimes you're going to have to drop the plastic ball, and you're going to have to let it bounce back up and let somebody else catch it for you, maybe. Yeah, if you're sharing the load, if you're delegating, drop the ball, let it bounce, and you can let someone else catch it. Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, even a glass ball is going to, you know, fall and break. It's really important not to beat yourself up over it, right? It's really important not to feel guilty about it, not to feel like a terrible parent about it. Yeah. Because we cannot keep all these balls up in the air all the time. It is just impossible. And all we do when we keep trying to have everything going all the time is we run ourselves down. Remember that energizer bunny, right? And remember that some things, not everything to do with our children is, is a glass ball. Some of them are plastic balls. The glass ball ones are things about their mental well-being, their physical well-being, any issues that they're facing at school or with their friends. You want to be there with them for those things. Some of these things, if they miss some homework deadlines, if they watch a little bit too much TV on a certain day, those are all plastic balls. You can drop them, and I promise you they will bounce back up, right? Now, when we're talking about all these things, I'm asking you to, hey, set realistic goals, share the load, delegate, all of those things. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the statement, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And once upon a time in this country, that village looked like a joint family unit, right? Many of us have grown up where we were raised and looked after and, fed after school snacks by our aunts, by our uncles, um, by elder siblings sometimes. And there was a big community of people in your own home to help with the child rearing. And now I'm not going to glorify that or romanticize that. It has its benefits for sure, but for it also has certain drawbacks, right? And it doesn't always work for everyone. And that family unit now today looks very different. Some of us live in nuclear families. Some of us are single parents. Some of us are blended families. And we don't always have this village of people living in our homes to help us raise our children, to help us balance some of these imbalances out in our lives. So it's so important for us to think also one thing. While I said there's, share the load with your partner, share the load with your children. If that's not possible, if there are some things, and that could be that your partner has, just had a big promotion and the next 6 months are going to be intensely busy for them with a lot of travel, with, late nights and things like that. It'll settle down at some point, that, right? Outsource. If you have the resources, please outsource some of these things. Hire a cook. Can you bring in a nanny to be there when your children come home from school for some time? Yeah. Can you hire someone to come in and help with elder care related things around the house? All of these things. And we're very fortunate in India to be able to live in a country where it is quite possible to find this kind of resources and help around us. So please outsource. That village that raises our children now with us today, it really does look very, very different. It could be people you bring into your home and you hire to help you do some of these things, right? And your tribe, this whole idea of this village or tribe, who else can you call in to support you? It might be friends, it might be colleagues, it might be neighbors, right? This is the community that we need to build around ourselves. And I know that sometimes it can feel very hard to ask for help. I know that throughout the pandemic, I really kept thinking, well, I have to do this all on my own. I have to manage work and my children's online school and all of these things by myself. And my parents live in Chennai, and I'm quite lucky in the fact that they're very active, and they're always more than happy to come and spend time with us. But I kept thinking, well, if I call my mother and ask her to come and help me out, or if I call this friend of mine and ask them to come and help me out, I'm failing in some way as a parent. I am failing in some way as an adult. And I realized that it took me almost till the second year of the pandemic to realize how foolish I was being, because they were all people who would, who were ready to come and help me, who were ready to extend a hand and, stay with us for some time and help out. But I just had too much pride, and I just was standing in my own way of getting help. So remember that it's completely okay to reach out to others as well and ask for help. Now, I think this is something that all parents struggle with today. And it's this idea of spending quality time with our kids, right? And I know that even in some of the chat that we had before the session started, balancing time with the kids, spending quality time with our children, and the idea of quality time looks so different today. We all think that every interaction with our child has to be a very deep engagement. There has to be learning. There has to be enlightenment. There has to be bonding. We put a lot of pressure into the time we get with our children. There, we have to help them with homework, with projects. We have to do all of these things. And how much time do we actually have to do that in a day? It's not a lot. Just again, like I said before, because of the hours that we work, the fact that even after we come home, our phones and our laptops are constantly distracting us. We have Slack messages, we have work WhatsApp now, which I think is the worst thing in the world. But we have so many of these things constantly vying for our attention while we're trying to spend time with our kids. So really, when we say spend quality time with our children versus quantity time, when I say quality, I don't mean that you should have this like set of KPIs for the time you spend with your child, where it's like, oh my God, at the end of this, 1 hour with my child, these are all the things that my child would have taken in and viewed and have all these feelings. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I want us to all remember that we only have 24 hours in a day, even though, of course, all the productivity bros out there want us to believe that we only woke up at 4 a.m. and drank lemon juice and then did some meditation, we would magically have another 100 hours in the day or in the week. It's not going to happen. But you have this time. How are you going to spend it with your child? Now, here's one thing I've learned is that when I go to my children or when I want to spend time with my children, what is my energy level like? If I go to my kids at the end of a long, stressful day filled with work calls, or if I go to them in between work calls and I'm like, oh, I have half an hour here, let me go and spend time to my children. Am I bringing my best energy? Is this the energy I want to bring to the time I have with my children? If I go to them at the end of the day when I'm exhausted, when I'm wiped out, when I just want to sit in front of Netflix and watch Made in Heaven season 2, that's all I really want to do. But I'm like, oh, no, no, I have to go and spend time with my kids. Is that the best energy? Am I doing right by them? So pick and choose those times of the day, and it can look different for everyone, right? Maybe you have the morning time is not stressful in your house. Maybe it's an actually pretty nice window of a half an hour, 40 minutes. And that's your window of time to kind of chat with your kids and check in on them and see how they're doing. It might be in that window when they come home from school. So I work from home, and barring today, I'm spending this time with all of you. But when my kids come home at around 4 o'clock, between 4 and 5, I usually tell myself that's time not to schedule any calls, not to be answering emails. That's time I'm just going to kind of be there hanging around. So if they want to tell me what they've done at school, if they want to share some fight they had with their friend, if they want to just, come and make a snack with me, I am physically and mentally present. So really check, when do you have energy in a day? I don't know how many of you here do date nights as couples. If you do, you can put a thumbs up or share it on the chat box. But date nights have become a really popular thing now, right? Where you and your partner set aside one night in the month where you find someone to watch your kids, you get dressed up and you go out for dinner, you watch a movie, you go to a show, anything like that. Why not do that with your kids? Have Take your kid on a date. And if you have two children, take them one-on-one. Don't take them together. Um, Take them for ice cream or a milkshake. Take them to go and watch this whatever Marvel has come up with, and you really have no interest in watching, but they really want to watch it. Take them for a date, and afterwards, set some time aside to chat with them about the movie and to just spend that time one-on-one with your child. And this is something I recommend parents do. So I might take my 15-year-old out for a date and do something with him. My husband might take my 12-year-old out and they'll have some time together. Because usually when everyone goes out together as a family, there are various other family dynamics that can seep in, right? Your kids might be fighting. You might be having some kind of a tussle or argument with one child. So I really, really suggest, setting up some time one-on-one with a child and spending time with them and include them in what it is that you might want to do. And yes, you don't have that much time. So how can you combine interests? So we all know goal setting, right? We all might have goals that, oh, I want to be physically fit, I want to learn an instrument. Can you combine some of those goals into interests with your child? So if you want to spend time outdoors in nature, if physical fitness is important to you, if you also want to spend time with your child, go on a hike together, and immediately all three of those things can be combined. And sometimes it's perfectly fine to invite other families with similar age children along for some of these things. So there's that sense of community that you build as well. Another really simple thing to do that has completely disappeared from our modern lives today is having meals together, right? How many of us still sit down at the dinner table and eat a meal together, especially dinner, right? Hardly, because we're all coming in at different times. One person might come in at 7:30, another one might come in at 10:30. Your kids need to have dinner by a certain time and be in bed for school the next day. So, result, everyone is just taking meals and kind of helping themselves to various meals throughout the day whenever it suits them. So start small. Sunday is typically a day when everyone is at home, maybe when there are less demands on your time. I always recommend start with Sunday lunch. So have Sunday lunch together as a family. No excuses. Yeah, unless of course there's an event or something like that you can't get out of. But start with Sunday family lunch. And it's a time of no phones, no gadgets, no distractions, absolutely nothing. Not watching a movie together and eating pizza or anything like that, but at the table and have a meal together. And I'm telling you, the kind of conversations that you'll find our children open up to slowly as you make this a tradition, it is really, really wonderful. Another simple thing, and again, this ties into my earlier thing of teaching your kids how to do things, is do chores together. Some of the best conversations I've had with my kids is actually when we're doing really mundane things together, like, after dinner, we have to put the leftover food into smaller katoris and put it in the fridge. And one person is like loading the dishwasher, and someone else is bringing the clothes in for the washing machine. We have some great conversations then. Yeah. We're talking about school, we're talking about what I did at work, and it's amazing that kind of relaxed environment, how it opens your kids up for conversations and to talk to you, because that's also something we really want in this increasingly digital world. We want our children to talk to us, to have conversations with us, right? So all of these things, remember, you're not aiming for perfection. We're not being perfect parents, we're being good enough parents. And to try some of these things and to find those small gaps in the day, those small moments in the day where you can bond with your children, where you can have conversations with your child, we can listen to your child. That's what we're really aiming for. Now, in all of this, where are you as the parent? Where are you looking after yourself? Because that's also so important, right? And there's so much messaging today around self-care. There's so much messaging today around how we're all supposed to be looking after ourselves. Remember the Energizer Bunny. If you don't rest, you're going to burn out. And we don't want to burn out, because the amount of time it's going to take us to bounce back from that, to come back to being there for our families, is long. It's a long road to recovery when you're burnt out. So you really want to take care of yourself. And self-care, if it's in the form of a massage or a spa day, or getting your nails done, or getting a head massage, that's great, and that's also self-care, of course. But there are other things, there are other ways of, there are 7 forms of self-care, if you will. And we of course have physical rest. You sometimes just need to give your body that permission to take an afternoon nap, or to sleep in one day, or to go to bed early as well sometimes. We need social rest as well. Yeah, if maybe cut out some of those people who are draining your energy, and who are, draining your time and energy in not good ways, and either just take a look to, break from social interactions, or maybe look for people who replenish our energy levels as well, right? Um, Mental rests. Are you taking enough rests and breaks between tasks? Sensory rest. Are screens always on, always plugged into a podcast, always listening to an audiobook, always answering messages and emails? Yeah, we really, really need to sometimes take a break from that as well. Creative rest. That's so important. You know, time to read a book, to listen to a piece of music, to play an instrument, to go and see an exhibition at a museum, if if you're lucky enough to live in a city with those kind of activities. We need creative rest as well. Spiritual rest, yeah, a little bit of pranayama, a little bit of breathing, a little bit of yoga nidra, whatever it might be, just a few small stretches or asanas during the day. These are all things that we can do. And I know it feels really hard, but I'm not saying set aside an hour, set aside 2 hours every day. I spend 5 minutes doing some breathing if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. And it really does help. If I am feeling stressed out, I will power off my phone and go and lie down for 10 minutes in a quiet room. That's all. And we all have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to take care of ourselves every day. Now, this is something I have added because Sunita and I were discussing it. Yeah, in all of this, right? We have so many, of course, like I mentioned before, we definitely have more women in the workforce today. It's a wonderful thing. And mothers in the workforce, parents, who are coming into work. And it's a hard thing. It's hard to get there, right? It's very difficult if you're the primary caregiver, and if you have a small child at home and you've left them in the care of someone, maybe perhaps family or a nanny or daycare, and you're coming into work because it is important for you to do that for yourself. And sometimes we can come into work and we can hear things that people might say to us, which can really, really be annoying. So these are some things that I'm hoping none of you are saying to your colleagues. Or if you hear someone else saying to a colleague, to a female colleague in the organization, I really hope you'll speak up and gently point out why it's problematic, right? And again, if you have heard these things, if someone has said this to you, please put a thumbs up or please use the chat box to tell us how you feel. How many of you have heard, who's going to look after your child when you're at work? How many of you have heard that? I have had it so many times. What will happen to the children? What will happen to your son? Oh my gosh, you're traveling on work. Terrible. Like, who's going to look after your baby, right? And the baby is 15 years old, by the way. It's not actually a baby. Wow, your husband is babysitting. You're so lucky. That's not babysitting. They are looking after the child that they helped create. Yes, and that they are helping me raise. It is not babysitting if it is your own child. It is not babysitting if you're not getting paid for it, right? You are just that your partner is taking care of their child, right? Another really unhelpful thing to say is your child must really miss you when you're at work or when you're traveling. Yeah, oh no. This kind of assumption that all our children are at home crying copious tears, pining away for their mothers. Yeah, it doesn't help. It lays on the guilt. Okay. How do you manage house and work? Wow, what a super mom that you are. I hate the word super mom because I think it just reinforces and puts more pressure on women to feel like they have to be perfect at work, at home, with their children, with everything around, right? This idea of a super mom. So everyone is just doing the best they can. Yeah, they are trying to do the best they can between home and work. But these kind of questions are not helpful. Another one that really personally annoys me is, wow, look, what an involved father he is. So sweet. The reason that that irritates me is because no one ever tells a mother, yeah, what a fantastic mom you are. Look at you, so involved in your children's lives. And these are no one's fault, right? It's just how ingrained some of these things have become in us as a society. But I think the more you start to speak up about these things, the more you speak out about these things and gently correct people, the better it can be for all of us. Okay, so we have 7 minutes left, and I'd like to see if there are any questions. Just one part, thought before we get into any Q&A is, remember, don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. And that is very important. And that's it from me.